only one God. And look at what he does. He's a God who brings light out of darkness.
Yes.
He's a God who brings order out of chaos.
Yes.
He's a God who produces life and causes everything to reproduce after its own kind. He's a God of order.
Fasten your seatbelts. My special guest today is Dr. Michael Brown, and we are going to be talking about the first 6 chapters of Genesis, and I promise you, you're going to be encouraged. Welcome to our new season of Portions podcast. I'm so glad you're joining us. Today is going to be absolutely amazing because I got one of my dearest friends and the smartest person I know with me, Dr. Michael Brown.
Hey, man.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to be with you.
So we've actually been doing these podcasts for years, going through Genesis to Deuteronomy, the portions that our Jewish people are reading in synagogues every week. This is our first year doing them both audio and video, and you're the very, very first.
So I want to say this to you.
Say
you
it.
said that I'm one of your dearest friends.
Yes.
And the smartest person you know.
Yes.
You are one of my dearest friends and the nicest person I know.
But not the smartest.
No, but the nicest.
I love it.
Well, let me also say that Nancy would strongly dispute that I'm the smartest person. That's my wife. She would dispute it.
I remember when we used to play Bible Pride, decades ago, people would open up the Bible, read a scripture, and whoever was playing against each other would have to say book, chapter and verse. And I doubt you ever missed the book. I don't ever remember you missing a chapter. And every now and then, probably more times than not, you actually got the verse right.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Bible's not that big. If we spend time in it, we can learn it well.
I love that, bro. And that, just you being here to start off our series. The very, very first reading after the holidays are over in the fall is the reading called Bereshit. So maybe you could just start off by saying, what does Bereshit mean? Mm-hmm. And why do you think it's like super significant?
Right. So the first 5 books of the Bible, that's exactly the same, Christian Bibles, Jewish Bibles. In fact, the content of what Christians would call the Old Testament is identical to what Jews would call the Tanakh or the Hebrew Scriptures. Mm-hmm. But some of the books are in a different order. But these 5 and the initial books exactly the same. So the 5 books, we have words, names that come from the Greek. So Genesis is a word for beginning. And Exodus, obviously, coming out of Egypt, etc. Leviticus having to do with the Levites and the priests. Yeah. In Hebrew, they come from the first word, or the second word, if that's the more directive one. So Bereshit is the opening word of Genesis 1. Exodus comes from, in Hebrew, Shemot, which is these are the names of the children of Israel, etc. Leviticus is Vayikra, and he called, so the Lord called. So that's where they come from. So Bereshit, that's the opening word of the opening chapter of the opening book of the Bible.
Amazing.
Now, what exactly does it mean? There's massive debate over it.
I wanted to ask you.
We know the word Bereshit in itself means beginning or that which is first. So it doesn't say Bereshit in Hebrew, which would be in the beginning, but Bereshit. Does that mean by way of beginning? Does it still mean in the beginning, or is it in the beginning of something? So Jewish tradition often translates it when God began to create the heavens and the earth the earth was formless and void, etc. Then God said, let there be light. Christian translations normally say in the beginning, God created, but the earliest Jewish translations we have, the Hebrew going into Greek called the Septuagint, the Hebrew going into Aramaic called the Targum, they also understand it to be in the beginning.
Interesting.
What is not disputed is this, that this book is telling us that the beginning of all things is God creating the universe. He's the one who endures before time. Psalm 90, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And this is now his first public act of creating the physical universe.
Amazing.
That's what's clear. That's what's shouting to us. Science has since learned that even time has a beginning. There was something before time. God himself is before time. This is now the beginning of his works. He creates the universe.
Amazing. As you were speaking, I was just flipping over to the first chapter of the book of John,
where
those same words, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Who's the word referring to?
So the word is obviously God, but with God. So God and yet distinct from God. The word is an expression of God. The word is the wisdom and knowledge and truth of God. The wisdom is the way that he communicates to us. So that eternal word is Jesus, Yeshua.
Amazing.
And when John writes John 1:1, his opening words, NRK in Greek, that's exactly what the Septuagint, so the Greek translators of the Hebrew scriptures a few hundred years before the time of Jesus, that's how they open Genesis 1:1.
Wow.
NRK, apois anathos, in the beginning, God created. So John is clearly pointing back. And how does God create in Genesis 1? Vayome, and he spoke, and he spoke. There's the word.
Yeah.
There's God creating by speaking. And this word now manifests who God is.
I love that. One of our mutual friends and somebody that was instrumental in me coming to the Lord, Art Katz, I remember him speaking on the first 3 verses. The earth was formless and void. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. Then God said, and I love how he pointed out that something necessitated God speaking, something attracted God to that. So whether we're talking about the very, very beginnings in the book of Genesis, or even today, what is it that really causes God to speak? And how can we attract God into our formless and void situations? Because it almost seems kind of hopeless. Something void, formless, there's nothing of value to it as we would look at it, but God somehow sees value in the same way that he sees value in dust, picks it up, blows into it, and speaks. It seems like these early chapters of Genesis could really be encouraging to us today, where in the middle of nothingness, in the middle of chaos, it seems like God speaks.
So let me step back and paint a bigger picture. There's endless dispute over the book of Genesis. Is it in harmony with science? Does it point to a young earth? Does it point to an old earth? Does Genesis 1 contradict Genesis 2? And endless questions about this. I believe in many ways those are the wrong questions. Why is Genesis 1 there? Why does the Bible start with this? It's a question that the Jewish interpreters ask because they're thinking Torah, law, commandments. Why doesn't it just start with Exodus 12, where God gives the Passover commandments, etc.? And the answer is, well, the day's going to come when God gives the land of Israel to the Jewish people, and the surrounding nations will say, you stole it from us. And they'll say, no, God created, he gives it to whoever he wanted. He gave it to you, now he took it from you, he's giving it to us. Okay, that's obviously a polemical answer, but one that's always relevant, especially with the modern state of Israel. But why is it there? It's to teach us about God. It's not there primarily to teach us science. Now think of this. If the Bible explicitly said the earth goes around the sun, then until the year 1500 or so, or Copernicus, everyone would have thought the Bible was wrong. They all would have laughed at the Bible. That's contrary to science.
Right.
Well, science was wrong. If the Bible was supposed to be in harmony with science in every single generation, the verses would have to keep changing because science keeps changing.
Right.
That's not why it's there. It's there to teach us about the God who created the universe.
I love it.
That's the purpose. That's why the people in the ancient world wrote about the origins of the universe, to praise this deity or that deity. Genesis 1, only one God. Not competing deities, not competing powers, only one God. And look at what he does. He's a God who brings light out of darkness.
Yes.
He's a God who brings order out of chaos.
Yes.
He's a God who produces life and causes everything to reproduce after its own kind. He's a God of order.
Yeah.
This is the God that we worship. And when the order is shaken, back to your question, like Psalm 74, when the enemies are attacking and the people of God are being beaten down and things are out of order, there is the appeal to this God. You see it in Psalm 74. You made everything. The sun, the moon, the day, the night. The fact that every single day, and remember, if you think in the ancient world, the way Jews do to this day, you have you have evening, then morning.
Yeah.
So light always follows darkness.
Yeah.
The Psalms say, weeping may endure for a night. Joy comes in the morning.
Wow.
So there's always this hope for the next day. The sea can only go so far. God speaks about it in the book of Job, and there it is in Genesis 1. It goes that far and it pulled back.
Yeah.
So God, now act like this in our world. Things are out of order. Things are chaotic. Darkness is triumphing. Let your light shine in the midst of it.
Wow.
God of Genesis 1, manifest yourself again. Go through the Bible and note all the imagery about light and darkness, all the imagery about day and night. Jesus saying we must work while it's yet day. Night comes when no one can work.
Yeah.
This is all drawn from Genesis.
Yeah, I love it. Seeing God move in the midst of chaos. I know you've written a lot about this, and we're living in a time where there's so much division based on who's ruling our country, who's ruling Israel. People saying that God can't move in the midst of this leader ruling. We're all going to hell. But really, when you look at how God used Pharaoh, I will get glory through Pharaoh, like the most godless leader. This chapter is really a chapter of hope then for us who may be feeling if our political preferred candidate isn't in office. No. What better place for God to move than when there is chaos?
And often when we have our preferred candidate in power, we look to our party, we look to the White House, we look to that candidate. When we don't, we look to God.
Yeah.
We always have to look to God. And look, this may sound trite. And I know to people going through difficult times, you may not get the force and the weight of this. But did the sun rise this morning?
Yeah.
Then God is still God.
Right.
And his universe is still running in order. And ultimately, no matter how dark, no matter how painful the loss, the child already died, the calamity already happened, the divorce already took place, the bankruptcy took place. We can't undo that right now. But God will cause the morning to come.
I love it.
The M-O-R morning. He will cause that to come. There will be light out of darkness.
Yeah.
It may be quickly. It may be over a period of time. It may ultimately be in the world to come. But as surely as the sun rose, as surely as God is God, and he rules and reigns, and he will bring order out of the chaos.
Yeah, I really want to encourage those who are watching and listening to really understand that regardless of how hopeless in the natural your situation seems, in the same way that God moved in Genesis 1, he's done that throughout scripture, and he will do it today. And bro, that's just super encouraging to me. As I go through Genesis 1, obviously there's so much that we can talk about, but when you get into Genesis 1 is all about the creation. When you get into Genesis chapter 2, here's a question that I know is burning on the hearts of so many. It says, heavens and the earth were completed, verse 1 of chapter 2, and all their hosts by the seventh day, God completed his work which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from his work. I don't think he was pooped. I just don't. If he gets tired, I guess exactly, man, look what I just did. That's crazy. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. I think sometimes we feel like we're somehow valuable when we can look at our time calendar and say, man, every moment of this day is full. We feel valued by that. Sometimes people in the midst of their hurriedness feel like, man, I'm really getting a lot done. But I'd love for you to speak on the theme of rest. Why did God rest? Why did he sanctify a day? And if he sanctified a day and made it holy, how ought we to be treating rest and Sabbath?
Yeah, so obviously the Sabbath debate is a deep debate.
Yeah.
Should Christians in general still follow a seventh-day Sabbath? Has the Sabbath been changed to the eighth day, the day of resurrection, so it's Sunday? Should Christians just find rest in Jesus and not take a day?
Yeah.
Should they take any day?
Right.
I posted a meme just for fun on Facebook the other day on the Ask Dr. Brown page, and it was a guy studying the Bible, from centuries ago, and he's saying, I still can't see where they changed the Sabbath to Sunday. And I just said, let the debate begin. Within an hour, there were probably 600-700 comments already. I look back 2 hours later, thousands, just everyone. So we're going to settle that. But let's say this. Clearly in the Bible, Sabbath rest was important. Clearly, it was not just something God was giving to be arbitrary or to steal our fun. And even Yeshua says in Matthew 11:28, everyone laboring, come to me and you'll find rest. And that was right. The text that follows gets into a Sabbath dispute. So we can agree that Sabbath is a very important subject in Scripture. And it seems that even in the millennial kingdom, when Yeshua rules and reigns from Jerusalem, that the Sabbath will be observed. Let's look at it as a gift. Let's look at it as something wonderful and beautiful that God gave. Let's put ourselves back into ancient Israel. So we're not even debating this today. The Sabbath also required faith. Because I got to do this. I got to finish it. The fields. No. Rest and honor the Lord. Every seventh year, you had to let your land lie fallow.
Right.
We cannot live without it. God says, no, I'll give you 3 years supply.
Wow.
The 1 year you don't reap, then the next year it's, you're sowing again. It's going to take until the third year before you reap again. So the Sabbath required faith. What God set in place with the same pattern of 7 years, forgiving debts, it all required faith. And I was meditating on my schedule a couple of years ago. It was probably right before COVID, or maybe in the beginning when I couldn't travel for 5 months and I slowed a lot of things down. And I realized that my running was sometimes my human response to the burden of the Lord, as opposed to obeying. In other words, his yoke is easy, his burden is light. And he made us a certain way to carry certain things. And when we can learn, for me, it's a discipline to slow down for Sabbath rest, but then you do get renewed in God. You do regain perspective. You do get refreshed. And it's just like you're too busy to stop and fill the gas tank. So you end up running out of gas on the road. Stop, refill, and you'll find your destination.
Amazing, bro. I love that. I feel like it's a message for today, especially for the younger generation. I feel like we're looking to be so productive in everything that we do. And maybe the most productive thing could really be stopping and waiting. And it really is an issue of trust. And I love how there are organizations that are thriving that actually observe the Sabbath. Businesses that will shut down.
Every Sunday in the airport, I see it closed. And then all the other days, the line for Chick-fil-A is always 4 times, 5 times longer than everybody. I smile every single time I see it.
It's amazing. Interestingly, the next portion is called Noah, which does that mean rest?
Yes, from it's the name Noah,
right?
But the name Noah is related to the verb for rest.
It's just so interesting, and we're going to talk about this next week. That actually, in the midst of the chaos, there was a man named Noah, whose name means rest. And even though God was judging, he was really judging for the purpose of redemption and salvation. But that's next week. I just want to, as we're coming down, I think we have just a couple minutes left. This is so sobering how this portion ends. The corruption of mankind. Genesis chapter 6. The Lord said, I'll blot out man. And it was good. You see that over and over in creation. And it was good. He creates man. And it was very good. So God creates something very good. I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, from man to animals to creeping things and to birds of the sky. I'm sorry I made them. I'm sorry I made them. And then that's it. Talk about seeming hopelessness. Did God blow it? What happened?
So the rabbinic commentators recognize that the Torah speaks in the language of men. So it says literally, it grieves the heart of God, and he regretted that he had made man. So it's conveying the depth of pain. Now, he certainly foresaw what was going to happen. He knew all this, and the New Testament tells us that Jesus was the lamb sacrificed before the foundation of the world. So why was he sacrificed? Because of the sin of the human race. Because that was the only hope for our salvation. But it's that painful. In other words, in human terms, he wished he hadn't done it. So just to convey that to us in human terms, that's how much it pained his heart. But that's how wicked the human race was. And this is without coercion. In other words, this is people choosing to do things freely. This is people saying, we're going to rebel, we're going to be carnal, we're going to be violent, we're going to be idol worshipers, we're going to be immoral. And God lets things go to a point. If he continues to let them go, we destroy ourselves.
Yes.
That's the end of the human race.
Yeah.
So he finds one man. Think of that. One man on the planet.
I love it.
And then through him, his wife, 3 sons, and their wives, he is now going to see the world repopulated. But he wiped out the world because that was the only way to save the world.
It's amazing, bro. That's really, really amazing. Friends, I just want to encourage you in the midst of hardship, in the midst of impossibilities, God is looking for men and women. The eyes of the Lord roam to and fro that he might strongly support those whose hearts are totally his. For people who want to get in touch with you, you not only have a podcast, you're on the radio every day with a show. Your website is one of the wealthiest sites around with endless information and encouragement. How can people get a hold of you?
AskDrBrown.org. AskDrBrown.org. We've got thousands of free articles there, thousands of hours of broadcasts, videos, debates. We have our special Real Messiah Jewish outreach where you can watch debates with rabbis,
Beautiful.
watch videos where I counter the counter missionaries. Ask Dr. Brown, AskDrBrown.org.
Thank you so much, bro. And thank you for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about Noah, and rest. God bless you.